Hey traders, good to see you. Hope you had a nice holiday vacation. For the members in the US that celebrated Thanksgiving, I am actually traveling, so I don't have my normal setup. So I do apologize in advance if my audio and video is really not up to par. But back to it, normal schedule, normal setup next week. But let's dig into the 12 charts that we have for this week. So our first chart, we have AN. This is Auto Nation. You can see we are over 50 on RSI. We have a TTM squeeze setting up, looking to go to the upside, positive momentum. We have an intertwined MACD with a potential crossover here. More importantly, we have an ascending triangle here with these highs. So what I'd be watching for on AN AutoZone, let's watch for a move over 131.93. I guess we could just call it 132. Over 132, and then these would be the fib extensions that I would be targeting to the upside. Next up is Facebook. So Facebook, once we had the symmetrical wedge breakout and retest, we've been making higher moves up here. And you can see support off of the lower cloud. That's our 3455 EMA cloud. Again, support off the cloud, and again, support off the cloud until support then turns into resistance. And so you can see to the downside, we hit another resistance level here, and then another resistance level here. We did break out, false breakout, and now we're coming back and retesting this swing low anchored VWAP right here, which is represented by that blue line. You could also see that we retested the 236 retracement level at 326.15 here and bounced. So if we do lose this anchored VWAP from the swing low right here, watch for a bounce off of 326.15. We did nail the bottom on this trade here, and so I have been tightening up my stop losses. And just to note, this black dotted line is my 21 weekly moving average. And the last couple of things to note, we did just lose 50 on the daily chart, and we have a one dot squeeze setting up on TTM. So, and also watch for this potential cross under here. So not saying we're done yet with Facebook, but going to be watching it closely into the coming week. Next up is GE, not necessarily a ticker that I trade, excuse me, but you can notice here on 95.51 we had a bounce, a bounce, a bounce, and now another bounce here. So this is actually a pretty decent area to take a position with a stop loss, let's say under $93, because from here we had a nice bounce up. From here we had a nice bounce up. And then from here, we had another nice bounce up. So, you know, from here at 95.51 to these highs at 114, that's a 21% move. Not a bad trade. You know, the one thing I would want to note and watch is watch RSI coming down into oversold conditions. We're just getting there, which if we continue to push down and we also have a squeeze to the downside, we might come back and test this 95, maybe slightly lower. So I want to see maybe another day of a bounce, and also note this gap that we have here. It's about a $3 to $4 gap. That could fill pretty quickly to the upside when we have our supply zone up here. So just a couple of things to note on GE. Next up is LRCX. This is a semiconductor. And, you know, we've been trading NVIDIA and AMD and over the last month or so, last week MU, and now I'm looking at LRCX. You could see we have been consolidating since March in a pretty tight range. Well, it's not really so tight, right? 530 to 670, so it's about a 140 point range. But nonetheless, it is in a range. We are back over the 21 weekly moving average. We did break over the downtrend line, and I'm watching for a potential retest and then bounce back up to these highs at 674. I would buy, personally, I would buy off of a retest here and a bounce. I would buy an all-time high breakout over 674.43, and I would also add on a retest of that. And so there's just a couple of ways that I'm looking to potentially play it. Now, we did come into overbought conditions and pulled right back in, and squeeze momentum is starting to dissipate, rounding out the top, and it does look like the MACD is starting to curl under. So that's or a few of the reasons why I'm thinking we'll get that retest, and I want to be very curious to see if we get that bounce off of that level. So that's what I'm watching for on LRCX. Next up is Palo Alto Networks, PANW, another ascending triangle. This one already has the breakout and the retest. So I would watch for another retest of 520.20 and a hold and bounce. That would be an area I would look to get long, or potentially a break over 552.30, which is our 2618 extension from a prior swing high, swing low, which would be that swing high and that swing low. You can see RSI is in a negative divergence, which means price is rising while relative strength is falling. So that's not a good thing that we want to see. We want to see that resolve. And also we have a TTM squeeze that's already fired, although the momentum is not spectacular. And last but not least, we did have a MACD cross under, and again, momentum not really that great. So it's got a little slow into this 552.30 level. As you can see, we did get a rejection on Tuesday last week, and then further rejections on Thursday and Friday. So this is a pretty real level, this 552.30. That would be the area I would look to go long. Next up is SEC Limited. Another stock that's been relatively strong throughout the last 2 years. You can see had a nice flat top breakout here, fell back, retested that 21 EMA, broke back above that center channel. It's been riding that center channel up until a week ago, and now we're falling back down. And I'm looking at this as a buy the dip opportunity. You can see the low here, a second low, a third, and a fourth low, and now potentially coming in for another fifth low. Couple of things to note on this low right here and this low right here. You had RSI close to oversold, and you had RSI right on oversold, both with nice bounces. Coming down here again, we're starting to already curl out of that oversold condition, and we're already starting to bounce. So can we get a bounce right back up to 350 to that center channel? That's what I would be watching for. Squeeze did fire down. I would watch for this to start dissipating and curling back up to the zero line. And then I'm also looking to see this MACD flatten out and potentially move back up as well. So the other thing to note about this bounce area, this was a previous all-time high, and that's exactly where we bounced back. So sometimes you can look at these things as we broke out and we kind of floated around a little bit, and now we're coming back and retesting that breakout level before potentially bouncing. Of course, we can fail here, and if we do, we've got a lot of supply, or a lot of demand, I should say, down here. So that's what I would be watching for on SE. Next up is Snapchat. Snapchat obviously pretty weak down into this gap down. And yeah, we've just been selling off. We had a nice bear flag forming right here. Broke down on the bear flag. Hit basically our measured move right into 47.99. You can see that was a previous all-time high breakout that retested and retested and retested and held. And then we made a higher low, higher low, higher low. And now we're finally breaking back down. So it looks a little bit like the dome. So that's never a good sign in terms of a trade. However, if we hold $48 and we start to bounce, I would take an entry maybe over $50, keep a stop loss at $47.50, wait for that RSI breakout, wait for that squeeze to start firing to the upside. We already got that MACD crossover. I think from a risk to reward standpoint, Snapchat looks pretty good here. So just my opinion. Next up is SOFI, and another one where, a series of higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, and possibly coming into that trend line before getting a bounce back up to the top of the wedge. The thing with SOFI, it's got a good technical setup. The problem is it's waiting on that bank charter, and I just don't think we're going to make any major moves until we get that news in. So I just wanted to kind of bring this to light, give you an update on it, because I've been watching the stock for a number of weeks and months now. So that's what I'm seeing so far on SOFI. Next up is TTD, one of the few charts that I do have Elliott Wave mapped out on, mainly because I'm in a position pretty heavy with shares, and I have been trading this weekly. I do have us into a 1-2 setup with another nested 1-2 right here, potential wave 3. I had wave 3 going up to 128. This could be a wave, a sub-wave 3, right? So this could be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of wave 3, and then we'll have our ABC retracement down before we get our last push or wave 5. That's kind of how I'm looking at it right now, but I want to get a little further data. But all I do know is that we are holding over 100. We did backtest that last week. So watch for a move back over 110.71 with a target of 128 in the coming weeks. Next up is the ticker U, Unity Software. We had tracked this inverse head and shoulders here, caught the breakout. Look at that throwback retest that we've been talking about in prior trades. We got the bounce right off that throwback retest, and we've been moving up beautifully. We had a nice move to 200 where we got rejected. We came right back down to that 174.71 level, which was a previous all-time high. Very similar to one of the charts that we were just talking about where it comes back down and it retests that level. Now, we are holding over 50 RSI. However, we did have a MACD cross under with negative momentum. And our TTM squeeze, although there are no squeezes setting up, momentum is dissipating back to the 0 line. So I'd watch for Unity. If we can hold 174 early next week, then that should set us up for a retest of 200 later in the week. Of course, I preface this with saying we need to make sure that the market is also trending up. We just don't know at this point what that's going to look like. So that's what I'm seeing so far on Unity. Next up is UPS, United States Postal Service. And yeah, I mean, MACD cross under, TTM squeeze just starting to set up. We did fail on 50 on RSI. However, we did close this gap right here. We did break out and retest this channel right here. And so I'm going to be watching. And we also had a 34 EMA test right there as well. Nice confluence. I'm just going to be watching if UPS starts to get a bounce to the upside. If we can clear 216, then we should test all-time highs and then make potentially a bigger move to the upside. And last but not least is XPEV. This is probably my favorite chart going into the week and actually into the coming weeks. Very textbook falling wedge breakout with a ABC correction on our wave 2. Now we have a wave 1, 2, potentially wave 3 setting up for a move to $70. Then we get that wave 4 pullback of sub of 5, excuse me, sub of 3. And then we would get that 5 sub of 3, potentially up to $85. We have room to run on RSI. We just started a 2-dot squeeze on TTM squeeze. And we have a MACD crossover. So that's what I'm looking for this week. That's my top 12 charts going into next week. Of course, let me preface this all by saying this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. I'm merely doing this for educational purposes. I want to teach you how you can potentially manage your own trades, whether it be using traditional technical analysis or advanced techniques such as Elliott wave and Fibonacci retracements, extensions, and projections. So please, if you can, leave a like and a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithms, and feel free to subscribe to my channel. That's also very helpful for me, help spread the word. Thank you very much again for being with me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the markets tomorrow.